What's going on, fellow Shadow Priests? Today we are talking about the best comp you can play in Shadowlands 3v3 Arena, and it is none other than the Shadow Priest Warrior Paladin composition. Every time I play this comp, it feels like my rating goes up and I don't really improve as a player, and I think that's kind of the mark of a good comp. But if you have been struggling as this comp, my aim is to kind of help everyone out with the general playstyle, what talents you should run, why the comp is so good, what it does well into, and what it struggles against. So we'll hop into some more detail on that, but I did want to show everyone my good friend here. His name is Ollie, and if I ever lose an arena, it's because he is on my keyboard. So yeah, let's check it out. Welcome to my state-of-the-art MS Paint creation. I've got the classes in this comp with some of their key abilities, and we're going to briefly talk about how some of these abilities interact with each other, and specifically focus on what we can do to help us set up damage as a Shadow Priest. So let's start with Warriors and their Stormbolt. We're going to use this on the kill target basically every time. There's some situations where you use it on the healer, but for the most part, in the opener, always stun the kill target with your Warrior Stormbolt. Anytime your Warrior Stormbolt's the DPS, you can generally intuit that he is going to have uptime on them and get his burst off in that window. The target won't be kiting him, they can't CC him, he's going to get pressure off. So every time the Warrior Stormbolts, ideally we want a CC on the Paladin. In the beginning of the game, I'm going to look to stun and silence very early on, but depending on the positioning and whether or not I'm getting trained, my Holy Pally could also run in for a Hodge and Repentance. Additionally, the Warrior could Fear to start. He has a 1 minute 30 cooldown, I think, on Fear, and if he's close enough to the healer, he can start the CC chain with Fear, and that's really good as well. So going down the line, we have Intervene and Spell Reflect. I put these two together just because they're really tanky defensive utility. And Intervene is particularly of importance because when we're playing against a melee cleave, which feels like every game right now, if we get intervened, we cannot get kicked by almost every melee. We can't get kicked by Ret, Warrior, Monk, what else am I thinking of? Rogue, Feral. Almost every melee besides DK, and DH, and Enhance, those classes have magical kicks, but any class with a physical kick cannot kick you for 6 seconds while you're intervened. And it's very important that you stay within 10 yards of the Warrior when you get intervened. So if you get intervened, don't start kiting, just kind of sit there and start free casting. You have 6 seconds to dot every player on the enemy team. You can go into void form, you can get a mind games off. There's a lot you got to do. I suggest getting a week or a tell me when to tell you when you're intervened. I added Spell Reflection because you can also have Intervene Reflect or AoE Reflect, and this just adds an extra level of annoyingness to this comp when a magical team is trying to get CC on the healer, and if the Warrior is good at reflecting, it's going to really piss them off and kind of tilt them, so keep that in mind. This comp is really tanky, and they've got a lot of utility to live, so we're going to try to utilize all of these spells to the best of our ability. We already kind of talked about the Warrior Fear. This can also be used as a peel, in particular against Rogue Mage. The Warrior loves to Fear in the opener and kind of stop their whole setup is really, really good. It's undispellable. And if they trinket that, then we could just kill them in a stun. So really good to use that Warrior Fear on more than one target sometimes. We also have Rallying Cry. With the nerf, it's now 2 minutes if you talent it, I think. But the Conduit makes Rally 40% of your HP. So this is really good to help save your team, specifically when they're swapping to the healer, or if the priest doesn't have defensive cooldowns. Rally is a good oh shit button to survive. And obviously going over to Shadow Priest, guys, we know what these spells are. We have Stun, Silence, Fear, Mind Games, Master Spell, Void Shift, which I don't play too much, and then we have Fade and Disperse as well. We kind of know all the spells, but I'm gonna specifically focus on how we can use the other classes' abilities to help us use our abilities. So we'll go over to Holy Pallies and touch back on the pre-spells. We have Repentance and Hodge. A lot of the times we're going to look for Hodge reps, but since Repentance is only a 15-second cooldown and his Hodge is going to be a much longer cooldown, sometimes we're going to have to communicate our stuns to help the Paladin get reps. So that just means waiting till the Pally's in LOS of their healer, stunning the healer when they're out of position, and communicating to your Paladin, you might be able to rep here or look for a rep. Something that's fun to do when there's an interrupt up, say I'm facing I don't know, Lock, Warrior, Holy Paladin and there's only one interrupt up, I'll actually mind control the target that has interrupt up, and if they kick me, then my pally gets the free rep. If they don't kick me, they can't kick because they're mind controlled. So I like to try to help the pally get reps whenever possible. Then we also have Aura Mastery and Bop coming out of the Paladin. So Aura Mastery first is going to make you immune to all interrupts for, I believe, 7 or 8 seconds or so. It might be 8 seconds. This is really huge against melee cleaves, guys, because we already talked about we have Intervene from the Warrior that's going to give us Aura Mastery for 6 seconds. We have an additional Aura Mastery that's going to last even longer, and it'll help us get our pressure out without having to worry about all of these multitude of kicks. Bop is also really huge against cleave teams. We can get bopped very early on before we disperse to keep our pressure up. It's really scary, I think, for a melee to be targeting a Shadow Priest that's bopped in Void form with PI up, just slaying the whole team. So we generally try to get bopped before we disperse against cleave teams to get damage out. Try to combine that with, Void form, mind games, etc. with your CC on the healer. It's also really good to Aura Mastery for repentances as well. And just make sure to call for Aura Mastery too when you need it. If you see they have 2 kicks up and they're like low HP and your CC's up and you want to mind games, just ask if you have Aura Mastery or Intervene and try to communicate to your team when you're having trouble casting. We also have Hand of Sacrifice from the Paladin, which is going to redirect all of the damage to him. They just nerfed the talent that reduced that damage, I guess, so Pallies are dying a lot now to sack. We got to be careful of that. And we have Bubble from the Paladin as well. I didn't put Wings in there, that's just their major healing cooldown. So you actually have a lot in terms of trying to deal with CC from the enemy team. We already talked about we have Intervene Reflect, we have Mass Dispel, and we have Bubble, we have Sack, we can also bop out of some CCs. It's going to be really hard for the enemy team to score a kill because we have so many crazy defensive utility spells, and part of the reason why this comp is so good right now is because it is so tanky, so it is crucial that you do not overlap your defensive cooldowns. If you need help trying to communicate with your healer and set up good ideas on how to rotate defensive cooldowns, make sure to check out the video we made on rotating defensive cooldowns. Real quick, before we get into some gameplay here, the talents I'm going to play almost every game. I'll play Driven to Madness against cleave teams. If the cleave team has more than one disease dispel, like a Ret and a Windwalker composition, I will probably run Void Origins instead because Lasting Plague won't have value if they're dispelling DP on cooldown. Otherwise, I will play these talents. If it's a mage team, a Fire Mage X team, I will play Void Shift occasionally. Especially if it's RMP, I'll play Void Shift every game, and I'll even swap out Lasting Plague for Thought Steal because I think against Rogue Mage Priest, we just kind of win the damage race and the mana game, and if we can do whatever we can defensively to stop them from killing us, we are going to win the game in 3 minutes or less. So other talents, these are standard. I play these basically every game. We'll play Psychic Core every game. Almost never use Void Torrent in this comp. You're going to be the focus a majority of the time, and Damnation is just good for keeping up that consistent pressure, getting your dots out when you need them. Alright, now for the playstyle, guys. This is a go, go, go pressure-based comp. You need to run out there with your guns blazing like you're the Turbo Cleave and start getting some pressure out. So I'm going to be looking to instantly get out my Void form. It's actually instant Void form this game because Windwalker dispel DP. I'll Fear Windwalker on the cooldowns, Silence the Paladin, Stormbolt on the kill target. This is such an ideal setup here. We have 3 people CC'd. My Warrior's popping cooldowns, I'm popping cooldowns. They 100% have to use something here. I'm also going to stun the healer out of my Silence to ensure he doesn't get any more globals off. That way we also get a Repentance. Here it is, Aura Mastery Repentance from the Paladin. Cannot be ranged interrupted by the Lock's Pet. I get reflected on mind games, but it's all good because my Warrior reflects his coil right back at him and we kill them in the opener. So even if we get Trinket and Sack there from the Paladin, we're still pretty happy with that opener. We went out there and forced a shit ton of cooldowns. The Monk popped shit, but it didn't matter because we had so much more pressure than them. Okay, we're going to put the foot back on the gas pedal here, guys. I want to highlight this game in particular because I think it's super important to go as balls to the wall as you can. So check out where these guys are right here. They're on the other side. I'm going to plant myself right here and try to go Void Form as soon as possible. The faster I get into Void Form, the faster it's going to come up again later in the game, and the more damage we're going to get off in the opener. If I'm in Void Form, I don't have to worry about casting. I'm going to go Void Form and then get my Damnation off and then dot the other target. And then from that point on, it's all going to be about Void Bolt, Shadow Crash, Purge. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to try to do instant damage as much as possible to try to keep up with this team. So we get into Void Form here, which is awesome. I kill the Grounding Totem for my Paladin. Doesn't really matter, he gets sanked out, so now I know I can for sure silence. There's no grounding, there's no sank. He can Aura Mastery it, but didn't get it off in time, I guess. So we're doing tons of damage, void bolting off cooldown. I get Hodge. I actually trinketed to death him, which is kind of troll. He bubbles, but my bad. It's never bad to play aggressive though. I should be void bolting here instead of casting my dots again. I want to get void bolt off cooldown always. Another really important thing to highlight here is that we have CC on the Shaman, yet I'm not purging Riptide. This is a huge mistake for me. I need to purge Riptide once my dots are up. We always need to have the kill target cleaned. We're going to do a ton of damage if that is the case. I'm also going to pause it here to highlight the positioning of our healer. He is like the mage on our team. He's pushed in trying to rep this guy. They're having a hex and rep battle. But as soon as we get a micro CC on the Shaman, and we're about to here, he's forced to dispel mind games. We're going to land that repentance, and I'm also going to call for a freedom here. It's super good to ask your pally for freedom. They probably won't use it unless you ask for it, so it's good to tell them when you're going for a fear, and then I can get freedom and squiggly on in, because he's only repped for 3 more seconds. If I'm slowed here, I definitely don't get it. I think I get the freedom, run in, fear off of that, and we force his trinket and spirit link. So now they have no bubble, no trinkets on any player, and we're going to be able to go super aggressive again. Look, my void form is already off cooldown. We're probably like less than a minute into this game, honestly. It has to be, right? Because I haven't stun silenced again. So here's our second CC chain coming up. I'm not even going to do it yet because we have a lot of pressure and this red's kind of lining. So as soon as I think it's a good idea, when this guy's about to get in line, I'm going to CC now. If I had CC'd the Shaman while he was back here and still running to the red, it wouldn't have had much value because he couldn't heal him anyways. So we get a little crowd control there just by positioning. And I'm just trying to pump damage if I can ever get in line, chain the CC, Shadow Word Death a little early, but we get the job done. I think one thing that's good to learn from this example is how important it is to just do damage. You don't need to wait for the perfect setup. You don't need to wait to have triple crowd control. You just got to do damage whenever you can. And take a look at the damage board, guys. I did more damage than a Ret and a Warrior. I mean, in what world is a Shadow Priest out damaging a Ret and the Warrior? The world where you can get intervened and Aura Mastered and bopped and actually do damage is that world. And that's why this comp is so fun. I'm able to get tons of pressure off. We get the Void Bolts flowing. Enemy team has to run away, and we pump them to their death. So what happens when we face a team that isn't a double melee that just trains a Shadow Priest? Well, that's where this comp really shines. We completely obliterate RMP. Any like melee caster healer team, I feel like we do really well into because we're able to shut down the caster really well with the Warrior. My damage is really easy to get off. If there's not too melee on me, I can just kind of get my cast off and keep my DPs up, do a lot of instant cast, and completely purge the target that we're on. There is one thing that you kind of have to adjust when they're not going on you. You need to be a lot more mindful of your positioning and almost play like a healer, because against RMP, they want to cross CC me every time. So I need to be pretty far from the rogue. That way, if he wants to cheap shot me so that the mage can cheat me or the priest can fear me, the rogue will have to waste 2 shadow steps. You have to step to me and then step to get back. And if he can't do that, then maybe he can't get something on my healer. So I need to really play mindful of my positioning, make sure I'm not getting cheap shotted and interrupted on cooldown, which I do a terrible job of in this game, by the way. So this is really kind of do as I say, not as I do. If I'm not cross CC'd, I can help out our team so much during their CC. Like right there, I just faded and I spam casted Shadow Mend. I could also Mass Dispel my Paladin. I could MC the Mage to interrupt him. There's really a lot you can do as a Shadow Priest to shut them down. Now, for the most part, all I want to do is just purge this mage, position better ideally, keep my dots up, and go for my CC when I see like a good opportunity. Ideally, when they're not doing their setup, when my warrior's on stun DR, we can push in and destroy this guy. I'm also playing Thought Steal against Mage, so every time I Thought Steal him, I can call that out, and my Paladin can play a little bit more aggressive and run in on that Priest to get some repentances. I'm spamming Void Form, but it's actually on cooldown because playing in the middle of the night, I'm really tired. Their dome goes on top of the pillar, even more unfortunate. I'm kicked by the rogue because, again, my positioning is not great. I'm going to go for the sheep on the priest out of this stun, and for some reason it breaks. I don't know. I think it was like a warrior attack. Resheep him, cast all the damage on the mage. Make sure to purge instead of doing damage if he has shields up, because your purges will do effectively more damage than your damage would, if that makes sense. The priest has PI up, he's spam healing, but look at our pressure. It's crazy. I'm just sitting here free casting, destroying this mage. Mind Flay, Void Bolting up cooldown, maybe a little Shadow Word Death if he gets low. We actually panic and overlap both of our fears, but it literally just doesn't matter because our comp is so good. They're kind of outplaying us here, and it just doesn't matter. It actually just doesn't matter. If you just purge and do damage and use your defensive cooldowns, which we, I think, did a pretty good job of not overlapping our defensives all game. We always have a response to them, and you know, by the time they maybe even find a kill window, they're and just on the back foot, they can't even afford to play aggressive. I think we played that pretty sloppy and we still win kind of easily. So the fact that we can beat these 3100 to 3200 teams without really playing at a top level shows you how good this comp is. We also do really well into double casters. It's just so much damage coming out from the warrior, and me kind of being pestering and annoying with the mass dispels, with the instant unavoidable CC. We can really shut a team down and do tons and tons of damage. It doesn't actually matter sometimes what target you're hitting, as long as you're hitting someone and doing damage. We can work that mana bar as well. This game doesn't come down to mana, but I think it definitely could. I feel like they're going to have a hard time finishing us off, whereas once dampening comes in, the Pally or any other healer literally will not be able to heal through our damage. It's just so much coming out from the warrior, and my instant CC and my purges. I'm not doing the most damage per se in this game, but if we just play super aggressive and completely run them down, we don't ever have to run away, really. We can maybe hide if they have Incarn up, but other than that, we can just W key this mage the entire game, and I'm just going to purge. I should also be positioned a little better as well. This map's super big, so it's going to be hard to line clones, but I could play further away from the boomkin so I don't get cloned. I can death polymorphs more. There's definitely a lot we can do. It's going to be hard sometimes for your paladin to push in for those repentances, so it's going to be kind of up to you as the Shadow Priest to catch the healer out of position, maybe stun him, fear him out into the open. In general, I think against like Fire Mage spell cleaves, they really want to kill Holy Pallies, so getting the Pally over aggressive is sometimes not a good idea. It works against the cleaves because they just trained me, but if they're playing really smart, they can just drag the Pally in the open and, you know, one-shot him in a Hodge every time. We need to play very mindful with mass dispels too. Like there, I grip him in, we MD Hodge, Sheep, and Combust like all at the same time, which is insane. That was super lucky that we got that off. So all we're doing is disrupting their kill attempts while gas pedaling the mage. We're not really waiting for any ideal setups, or like, we're not really being super patient with when we CC or when we do damage. We're just doing damage and then CC whenever it looks like an opportune moment. Sometimes if the guy's at 100% HP and your warrior's not there, it's not worth CCing. You just kind of have to keep your eyes on the game and, you know, see if he's connecting or not. But eventually that CC does come, as it did there, and, you know, we're able to close it out. So we do want to position ourselves in a way that helps our paladin get repentances, so anytime the melee are on me, I want to put them in a spot where the healer has to heal them and not be at the pillar. On Blade's Edge, jumping into this open space down here is actually really good. I MD my paladin out of the rep. He's DR stunned, doesn't matter. Notice that I'm free casting with Intervene up. I'm not able to get stunned or anything on that, so we get a nice mind games off there. We force Trinket and Sack from the Holy Paladin. I'm trying to purge the Bloodlust, but I get unlucky with, I guess I just wasn't pressing it and I disperse, but that's okay. Trading your defensive cooldowns for their offensive cooldowns is a really good idea. Avatar and Bloodlust should equal something from your team. We have the Pally positioned in a spot where he's able to get Repentance, which is awesome. I'm intervened, able to cast here if I want to. Shadow Mending myself with Intervene so I cannot get interrupted. Gonna walk over, fear the heal, purge his heal. As soon as I purge his heal, I need to get away from them again because I don't want to stack everybody up. If the healer can play on the pillar, we're not going to get the repentances that we need to win. So after the spear, I need to get the fuck out of here, do as much damage as we can, and eventually get the dub, you know? I'm staying down low, which is a little awkward at this point, so I come up to purge the bop. If they get back onto me, I'm going to jump down, I think. Fake the reflect once. But look, we go to mind games again, I'm pretty sure, and they have yet another reflect. They've got another grounding totem. There's just so many unfortunate things that happen. He grounds the mind games. Good play by him, bad play by me. Purge the Bloodlust, chain CC. Just spam CC whenever you can. It's going to amount to something. We silence. Paladin gets too greedy with the bubble, and we get the win there. Just going max aggro, max damage, max CC. If you're having trouble doing damage against teams like Turbo, definitely check out the video I have versus double melee. If you have questions about positioning, we have the positioning video as well. I think that'll complement this video in a really awesome way. Other than that, if you have any other questions, feel free to stop by the stream at twitch.tv/stopsp, where we're streaming high rated arena every night. And also make sure to join the Discord. I'll put a link in the description. We have just some good fellow friendly shadow priests. We talk about legendaries and conduits, and any questions you might have on comps or guides or strats. There's generally someone to answer there, and if not myself, when I'm available. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more content. I think what we're going to do maybe in the future is do specific comp versus comp guides. That way it's not one long 20-minute video. It's maybe like a brief 5 to 6 minute video on how to beat a particular comp as a common Shadow Priest comp. So if you have any other suggestions for the videos as well, leave them in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Have a nice day.